Hello everyone, and welcome back to Fun with Flags and History. I'm your host Frank, and today we're going to be talking about the very important and significant history of the Canadian goose species.
Our journey to victory has begun! Death to the MPLA!
Hello everyone, and welcome back to Fun with Flags and History, viewers. In today's video, we will delve into the complex and turbulent history of the Angolan Civil War. Lasting for more than 27 years, this conflict had a profound impact on Angola and the wider region. Join us as we explore the causes, key events, and consequences of the Angolan Civil War. Let's not waste any more time and dive right into this, shall we? Before we delve into the details, let's provide some context. Angola, located in southern Africa, was a Portuguese colony for over 4 centuries. The struggle for independence from Portuguese rule laid the foundation for the eventual outbreak of the Angolan Civil War. Portugal's colonization of Angola began in the 16th century with the country exploiting its vast resources, particularly in mining and agriculture. Over time, resistance to colonial rule grew, and various independence movements emerged. In the mid-20th century, nationalist movements advocating for independence gained traction in Angola. These movements encompassed diverse political ideologies ranging from socialism and Marxism to democratic and nationalistic principles. The 3 key independence movements emerged in Angola: the People's Movement for the Liberation of Angola, also known as the MPLA, the National Union for the Total Independence of Angola, also known as UNITA, and the National Front for the Liberation of Angola, or the FNLA. These movements differed in their ideologies, strategies, and external alliances. The decolonization process in Angola set the stage for a power struggle among the various factions vying for control of the newly independent nation. Let's now move on to the Alvor Agreement, which led to the consequences and eventual outbreak of the Angolan Civil War. The Alvor Agreement, signed in January of 1975, was intended to facilitate a peaceful transition to independence. It outlined a power-sharing arrangement between the MPLA, UNITA, and the FNLA. However, deep-rooted ideological differences and ambitions for power complicated the implementation of the agreement. Factional rivalries intensified as the MPLA, UNITA, and the FNLA competed for dominance. External powers such as the United States and the Soviet Union saw Angola as a strategic battleground in the broader context of the Cold War, further fueling the competition and exacerbating divisions. Despite the Alvor Agreement, tensions escalated rapidly. Armed clashes broke out between the MPLA, UNITA, and the FNLA, leading to a cycle of violence that ultimately engulfed Angola in a full-fledged civil war. The Angolan Civil War can be attributed to a combination of political, ideological, and economic factors, as well as external influences. The conflict involved multiple factions, each with their own goals and backing. The MPLA, led by Agostinho Neto, emerged as a prominent faction fighting for independence from Portuguese rule. With a Marxist-Leninist ideology, the MPLA aimed to establish a socialist state in Angola. UNITA, led by Jonas Savimbi, was initially aligned with the MPLA in the struggle for independence. However, ideological and power struggles emerged, leading UNITA to break away and become a separate faction. UNITA received support from various external sources, including South Africa and the United States. Lastly, the FNLA, led by Holden Roberto, also played a significant role in the early stages of the conflict. Initially supported by Western powers, including the United States, the FNLA sought to establish a democratic government in Angola. The Angolan Civil War became a proxy battleground of the Cold War, with various external powers providing support to different factions. The United States and the Soviet Union, along with their respective allies, saw Angola as a strategic arena to assert their influence. The United States provided support to UNITA and the FNLA while the Soviet Union backed the MPLA. In support of the MPLA, Cuba intervened militarily, sending troops and advisors to aid the Angolan government. Cuban involvement had a significant impact on the balance of power in the conflict. South Africa, seeking to counter perceived Soviet influence in the region, supported UNITA and engaged in military interventions. South African forces launched cross-border incursions, further escalating the conflict. The Angolan Civil War was marked by several key events that shaped the trajectory and intensity of the conflict. So, let's explore some of these events. Following the departure of Portuguese colonial forces in 1975 after the Carnation Revolution in Portugal, the MPLA declared independence and assumed power. However, both UNITA and the FNLA contested the MPLA's claim, sparking a power struggle and triggering the onset of the Civil War. The Battle of Quito Cuanavale was one of the most significant and decisive battles of the Angolan Civil War. It took place from 1987 to 1988 and involved forces from Angola, supported by Cuban troops, and the South African Defense Force. The battle was fought in the southeastern region of Angola near the town of Quito Cuanavale. It was a pivotal moment in the conflict, with both sides viewing the outcome as crucial for their strategic objectives. The SADF launched a major offensive to capture Quito Cuanavale, aiming to undermine the military capabilities of the MPLA and force Cuban forces to withdraw from Angola. The SADF initially made significant advances, pushing the MPLA and Cuban forces back. In response to the SADF offensive, the MPLA and Cuban forces launched a fierce counteroffensive. They successfully repelled the SADF and pushed them back, inflicting heavy casualties and reversing their gains. The Battle of Quito Cuanavale resulted in a military stalemate. However, it marked a turning point in the conflict, leading to increased international pressure for negotiations and eventually paved the way for a peaceful resolution. The Battle of Mavinga, fought in 1985, was another significant engagement in the Angolan Civil War. It involved the forces of UNITA, supported by the SADF, and the Angolan Armed Forces, or FAA, supported by Cuban troops. Mavinga, located in southeastern Angola, held strategic importance due to its proximity to the border with South Africa. Both sides sought to control the area for logistical and territorial advantages. UNITA, backed by the SADF, launched a major offensive to capture Mavinga. They aimed to weaken the MPLA's control over the region and disrupt supply routes. The MPLA, supported by Cuban forces, fiercely defended Mavinga. They launched counterattacks to repel UNITA's advances and protect their positions. The battle for Mavinga ended with a tactical victory for UNITA, as they briefly captured the town. However, the MPLA and Cuban forces quickly regrouped, launching a counteroffensive and retaking Mavinga. The battle highlighted the ongoing conflicts and external support received by both sides. The Battle of Quito, I do apologize to my Portuguese viewers, of course, fought in 1988, was another significant engagement in the Angolan Civil War. It involved the MPLA, supported by Cuban forces, and UNITA, backed by the SADF. Quito, located in central Angola, was besieged by UNITA forces for over a year. The town suffered from continuous shelling, deprivation, and civilian casualties. The MPLA, supported by Cuban troops, launched a relief operation to break the siege of Quito and provided much-needed assistance to the trapped civilian population. This operation was a crucial moment in the battle for control over the town. UNITA employed extensive defensive tactics, including landmines, trenches, and fortified positions, making it difficult for the MPLA and Cuban forces to advance. The MPLA, supported by Cuban forces, launched a massive offensive to break the siege of Quito. They faced fierce resistance from UNITA, but managed to push forward and gradually weaken UNITA's defensive positions. After months of intense fighting, the MPLA and Cuban forces finally broke through UNITA's defenses and liberated Quito in February of 1988. The operation marked a significant victory for the MPLA and a major setback for UNITA. The major battles of the Angolan Civil War played a crucial role in shaping the trajectory of the conflict. The Battle of Quito Cuanavale, the Battle of Mavinga, and the Battle of Quito were just a few examples of the intense military engagements that occurred during this long and devastating war. These battles demonstrated the complexity of the conflict, with various factions and external powers vying for control over Angola. They also showcased the significant involvement of Cuban and South African forces, turning the war into a proxy battleground of the Cold War. The outcomes of these battles had far-reaching consequences both militarily and politically. They influenced the dynamics of the conflict, the negotiating positions of the party involved, and eventually contributed to the peace process and the resolution of the Angolan Civil War. In our next video, we'll explore the aftermath of the Angolan Civil War and its impact on the nation's reconstruction and reconciliation efforts. Stay tuned for more insights into this critical period in Angolan history. Thank you for joining us today as we examined the major battles of the Angolan Civil War. If you found this video informative, please like, share, and subscribe to Fun with Flags and History for more historical content. As always, feel free to leave your comments and suggestions below. Until next time, take care and keep exploring history. This is, of course, Frank, Fun with Flags and History, signing off. Have yourself a wonderful day.